Hello, my name is Janice B. Gordon. This is Scale Your Sales podcast. Welcome to the Scale Your Sales podcast, listed number 9 of 42 best podcasts for every sales professional in 2021. I am Janice B. Gordon, the customer growth expert, recommended by LinkedIn as one of 15 innovative sales influencers to follow in 2021. In this week's episode of Scale Your Sales podcast, my guest talks about how they help organizations to harness their financial and business insights to drive top line growth. So we delve into Amazon best-selling book, Insight-Led Selling. And I've read this and I absolutely urge all sales leaders, all sales professionals to read this book. We talked about how value propositions only go so far in terms of proving the return on investment of the solution to the customer. This goes to a whole nother level of helping sales professionals to develop their business acumen. I speak to the author of a book I've just finished and I'm raving about it because it goes to a whole new level of educating sales professionals about the business acumen they need in order to become trusted advisors, but also in order to prove the value of the solution to their customers. So I would urge everybody to read the book. His company, Finlistics, helps sales organizations harness financial and business insights to drive top-line growth. He is the board of directors at several charities which help special needs children live more fulfilling lives. Welcome to Scale Your Sales podcast, Stephen Timmy.
Hi, Janice. How are you doing? And thanks, everyone, for listening to the podcast.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. I have read your book and I'm really enjoying it. And I'll tell you why. There are many sales books out there, as you know, but they do not cover the essential ground needed for sales professionals to become trusted advisors. They have to have business acumen. And what I love about your book is that you separate out what executive insights you need when you're talking the language, what they're interested in. You separate that out from the industry trends and things and where to get them. You make it so easy for people like me that are not, CFOs, but need to perhaps talk to CFOs. And you make us feel, don't worry, you don't need to know everything. You just need to understand what your customer needs to hear, the thing that's going to get them to understand that you're there to help them. That's essentially what it is. So I really enjoyed, and I'm going to listen to it again because it is very much an education. And any sales professionals that really want to up their game, it's an absolute must. So tell me more about how you developed the whole concept of educating sales professionals in the financial need to know in order to do their job.
Yeah, so it's been an interesting journey. In fact, my hair used to be dark when I first started the journey. At least I still have it. No, so Janice, here, real quick, how this came about was in a previous life. I was a professor of finance at Emory University here in Atlanta, where I live. And I loved being a professor. Teaching is in the DNA of my family. But I decided, Janice, that as much as I love being a professor, I was not going to take a vow of poverty to be an educator. So I was very, very blessed to work with a number of Fortune 500 companies, manufacturing, retail, goes on and on. And so just by pure luck, I was doing an open enrollment workshop at Georgia Tech, Georgia Institute of Technology, also in Atlanta. And this guy from the software company comes up and says, have you ever thought about applying this to sales? Because with these companies I was working with, a lot of it was how to improve operational efficiency. And here, Janice, you're in production. Here's how you help, and on and on. That's when I started thinking, because Greg said, he goes, look, we're so focused on features and functions, executives could care less. We don't know how to show business value. And that's when it started pivoting to say, well, look, I mean, even recent research says executive buyers believe 80% of sellers don't know their business. And we do research, you probably read it in the book, where, only 25% of sales organizations can align their solutions with what a customer is trying to do, which is sad. So that's when we really started saying, well, let's take this, how people run their companies internally, and talk to salespeople, and I love what you said. You don't need to know everything. You don't have to be this industry expert. You just need to get the conversation going. So that's where we really pivoted and said, what do you need to know? Well, one, you have to have some level of financial acumen, not be an MBA in finance, not be a finance type like me, thank goodness. But really, you need to understand the financial parts. But to me, even more important is, what exactly is your customer trying to get done? What are their strategy for growing revenues or better managing expenses? And then thinking about the solution. Don't go in and say, hey, I sell customer intelligence, so Janice, that must be what you need. We don't know that, right? What's Janice trying to get done? So that's really, it's been a good 20-year journey. It's been lots of fun, lots of cool companies that we work with, and have worked with thousands and thousands of sellers, and hope in some way we've helped make their life better.
Yeah, well, you've certainly made my life better. I've read lots of books around value propositions, and Malcolm McDonald, I'm a visiting fellow of Cranfield School of Management. He's written a brilliant book where he talks about financially quantifiable value propositions, because many of them don't do that. It's just
they don't.
This strange concept of value from whose point of view, but there's no ROI. And I think that your book takes it another stage further than that, because you cover value propositions, but actually really understanding what the business goal of the business is.
Exactly. And that's what, to me, one of the unique parts of the book. I mean, look, what Finlistics does, we sell sales intelligence. So it's self-serving. I'm just going to say it for me to say, hey, you ought to be doing this, because, we sell that. But that's why, Janice, as you know, to me, one of the most unique parts of the book is around us interviewing a dozen executives from a lot of premier companies. And what is it you want, right? Let's just go to the source. The heck what Steven thinks or Finlistics think. What are, their executives actually wanting? And that's what I really like. Some of the things they said, like, tell me something I don't know. I was like, what? You have these huge staffs, you got every consultant you want, and you're telling me something you don't know. So a lot of good insights into things like that I really, really enjoyed writing the book.
It's a real education for sales professionals. They have to have this book, and the way that you've written it is very educational as well, in the summarizing. So thank you. Thank you.
And I gotta plug my co-author, Melody Ashley.
Yes.
So I brought I don't want to say the academic side, but this side, and Melody's been in sales for a good number of years, great insight. So it was so much fun to work with her and doing this. So it was really a labor of love. So
let me ask you about whether the sales industry, all the people that you interviewed, not only for your book, but I know that, the customers that you work with, your clients, whether you feel they've shifted enough to really focus on the buyer. You provided the financial tools, but being buyer and customer centric.
There's still a ways to go. Like the one Forrester, result I gave you, that executive buyers believe 80% of sellers don't understand their business. Our research about, hey, can you align your solutions with goals? Only 25%. As you know, Janice, I think it's Gartner now, there's 10 plus stakeholders in these major deals. Well, you got to customize the message. I'm talking to you. You look like you'd be a marketing person to me. I'm the finance person. There's operate. So you got to customize the message. And the same thing as a lot of folks say, we're just not where we want to be. So there's a lot of heavy lifting still left. The good news is it's really not as hard as people think it is. It's a lot of work. I'm not going to take that away, say it's not, but it's also very scalable. So still a lot of work to be done. That's why I listened to some of your podcasts. I loved it, because hey, listen, folks, this is a customer-centric perspective. I don't care what your features and functions are. I don't care if your technology can run 10,000 forecasts in a minute. I only need one. So it's still a lot of work to be done. And I tell our folks at Finlistics, they're like, gosh, I can't believe people are still doing this. I'm like, hey, I'm glad, because I don't want a real job, right? Still a ways to go, but there is a path forward.
Yeah. I mean, you have to do your research, but it's not as difficult as people think. Why do you say that?
I think they get overwhelmed. Like they got to do everything at once. Like I got 5 major solutions. I sell them to 5 different industries. And my advice is always look, pick, a couple of the industries, think about what you do, pick a couple of the areas of financial performance. So for example, let's say you sell customer insights. There's all kinds of financial metrics. You're going to drive revenues. It's a team sport, right? Sales enablement, sales leaders, field sales, industry experts if you have them, and just brainstorm about, okay, let's talk to Janice, the CMO. Let's talk to her how we can help, and then get into the how much. So I always tell people, just pick an industry, pick a couple areas of financial performance, get your how statement down. And I learned that from Tom Shoei. He was the CFO at Walmart. Wonderful person to work with. And we're both finance types. And I'd always come running, Tom, we did this. Steven, calm down. Tell me the how this is going to help improve Walmart's performance. And then we'll get into the how much. So it is some work, but I think people just get so overwhelmed thinking it's got to be perfect. And, you've heard the phrase progress over perfection. Pick an industry, pick a couple areas of performance, get your how statement down, build some use cases. And it's a great start.
I think that's a wonderful phrase that you said. Tell me how, and then we'll get into the how much. And providing the insights-led selling of the how and proving it, then actually the how is going to pay for the how much. If you can demonstrate that you're going to save X number of time, well, what does that mean to the bottom line? Or you're going to, reduce cost by X, then that often pays the how, doesn't it? How much pays for the how?
I tell people all the time, you don't have the right to tell me how much until you've demonstrated the how. Because people just make up, look, I'm a finance person. You just make up numbers, right? And most of the time we don't believe vendors anyway. We're going to go back and do our own analysis, or we're skeptical. I shouldn't be so cruel, but yeah, the how earns you the right to talk about the how much. People that lead with the numbers, I'm always like, listen, you just lost all kinds of credibility. There's certain companies out there have these value calculators on their websites. Oh, you've got this many employees and we can save you $100 million. That's nuts. That's absolutely crazy.
Okay, so let me ask you about enabling buyers. So we talked about how customer service, customer experience, and the value that you're giving your customer. I want to kind of delve into how the other side, the buyer's side, how you can actually enable them.
Yeah. So in the book, there were 3 key takeaways in talking to these execs. One was tell me something I don't know, right? Show me the business and financial benefits, and then make my life easier. So from a sales organization perspective, so think about it. Tell me something I don't know. And Dawn Garibaldi, she was a senior VP of supply chain at Procter & Gamble. When she said that, I'm like, Dawn, are you kidding me? P&G,
you know everything.
And she was really interesting. She said, look, we get heads down. We're supposed to grow earnings per share by this, take this much. She goes, we get so heads down. She said, but these enterprise sellers, they talk to a lot of different companies in our industry, and don't say anything confidential, but say, well, let me share with you what others are doing to better manage expenses or to get product to market faster. Sometimes you're validating it, sometimes you're telling them something new, and it can either be something internal. Like I was talking to one friend of mine, he sells into insurance, has his insurance through the same company, and he's getting 3 different communications. And he goes, why are you doing this? So he talked to their CMO. They got a database, master database, cut costs, enhance the experience. So one, help them by saying, look, I'm different. I'm not that 80% that you think I am. I'm going to share with you something you don't know. The second thing is, and this does not happen enough. Oh, so Janice, my understanding, let's say you're retail, you're trying to grow revenues by having a differentiated omni-channel experience. Let me share with you, right, how we've worked with others. Let me share with you how we can help you align with that goals and your strategies. And, oh, Janice, I know being the chief marketing officer, you're looking at things like campaign response rate. Well, I'm going to try to talk your language. I'm not as fluent as you are. So show them the business benefits, how what you're doing aligns with what they're trying to get done and the potential financial benefits. The last one is, let me make your life easier. And I'm trying to think who it was. It was one of the people we interviewed. Steve Clancy. He was the CIO at Georgia Pacific, or is. And he said, sometimes I work with these vendors. I love what they're sharing with me, but then they give me this 30-slide PowerPoint deck. He goes, I got to melt it down to one page, right, to share it with my colleagues. So their whole point was just leave out all these details. Just give me it on a one page so I can make it so it's easier for me to go sell this stuff internally. So that's how you can really help the buyer, because here's what I find, and having worked with executives for many years, they want their trusted advisors to be successful, and the trusted advisors should want them to be successful. They don't want to 3 years, let's rip this technology out, plug in some new stuff. Yeah. So they really do want them to be successful. But what I find a lot of times with sellers is they're just selling the wrong way.
And it reminded me of Jill Conrath when she's written several books, but she always says crazy busy customers. And I think sellers don't always have an awareness. They're head down. They've got no time. It used to be that buyers only use 5% of their time across all of the vendors. Yeah. That 70% of their entire buying time is actually focused on buying. So you think a buyer, that's all they do. No, it isn't. So they are so crazy busy, they don't have time to do all the consideration. So if you understand their world, then make it easy for executives. I think that's a great concept to get your head around. Yes. How can I make it easy for the person I'm talking to?
Yeah, and Janice, they're already 70% down the buying journey, right? And as you get more and more millennials as buyers, a friend of mine calls them the untouchable. They almost don't even want to talk to vendors. Like, I know what I need. You're just going to be this order taker. So how do I differentiate myself by aligning with them more quickly? I don't have weeks to do that anymore. I got first couple of meetings, you and I need to click. So yeah, it's just, a lot of things they can do to really help the buyers and differentiate themselves. And as you know, buyers don't want to be working with 5 different vendors, right? They really they want to have one throat to choke. That's it, Yeah.
Another great phrase. Yeah. All right, so let me talk about diversity. Okay. I know that you've got, some experience in what you have seen with your clients. So it'd be great if you could share that, whether you think the industry is changing, whether you think that, more is to be done.
Yeah, big changes. And I think in my response earlier is that, having done, I think I first started this the late 90s, early 2000s. And, if it was technology, you'd go and do a workshop, and it was like you went to the dude ranch, right? It's all those guys, all that kind of stuff. And so a lot of our clients, like the IBMs of the world and the Ciscos of the world and the Microsofts of the world, they made a conscious effort. They see the value and, hey, let's have these different perspectives. And the one that really stuck out at me one time, I was in this workshop, and it was all about being a trusted advisor. And they were talking about, I forget exactly what the ratio is. It's something like, how much talking you do, how much talking the client does relative to how much talking you do. And they were saying that guys have low scores because we were just talk about ourselves. And they were talking about women, like if I were to say, oh, Janice, how are your children? They were saying men are just like checking this list off, right? Where women really care, how are your children? So, what I see, like in our company, there's just a different perspective, which is helpful from, okay, how are we going to approach this problem? How are we going to approach this customer? What is our strategy? And so what I find is by having the diversity in there, not just, men and women, but we have people from India as an example and other places, is you just, one, be more representative of the real world for one, and then two, there are different perspectives and they're worth listening to. So like I said, our clients have made a conscious effort not to just fill the quota, but they see real value in it.
Yeah, which is great. I think that I often ask the executives, what is the makeup of their board, and they know what I'm driving at without, being threatening or anything like that. And I think you just need to ask the question, and the more they get asked the question, because I don't know if it's in America, but certainly when the Christmas advert comes out, you certainly see diversity represented by everyone, all of them. But when you go onto their website and you look at the leadership team, nothing changes. You know, they just roll them out, you know,
Yeah.
politically
No,
correct.
I used to do that is I would get out, you know, to say, hey, you're calling on this company, blah, blah, blah. And I'd open up and here's the board of directors. I said, pretty diverse, huh? Bunch of old white guys like me. That's what it is. But you're seeing more and more changes. People see the value in that and the focus on the whole ESG, right? I mean, that's people are kind of saying, okay, look, we need to really think about this. And some companies I know, they're just checking the box, but I think others are making a conscious effort to say, you know, we have this responsibility to be more representative of the real world.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me more about Finlistics, where you are now, what you're developing, you know, how you're kind of moving it forward.
Yeah. So real quick, what Finlistics does here, I always like to talk about the challenge that we're addressing. So enterprise sales organizations, everybody wants to call higher. Everyone wants to talk to different buyers, right? Because these buying groups are getting larger. So what we do is a number of things. One, we work with our clients, and all this is pretty much automated now, you know, as a platform. But we'll work with them to say, okay, what is it? The industries you serve, the customers you're calling, what is it they want, and how do your solutions align with that, right? The other part is then saying, okay, well, what's going on financially? Because all the executives we talked to in the book said, if I'm publicly traded, you need to know how I'm doing financially, not be a financial expert. So we have a platform called Client IQ. Within literally a matter of minutes, you could say, okay, I'm calling on HSBC or Lloyd's, whoever it is. So I can find out what they're doing financially, what are some of their key priorities. And then as a part of that is, you know, okay, you sell customer intelligence, right? Well, what would a 1% improvement be worth if they could increase cross-sell, upsell? So what it does, it puts all those pieces together. So it would take hours and hours and hours to do. Some people say 20 plus hours, you can really get in a matter of minutes. And I never say we save you time, because here's what I find. If it's going to take someone 20 hours to put all this together, they don't do it, right? So it provides them that outside-in perspective on what exactly is HSBC or Lloyd's, whoever the heck we're talking about, Carrefour, what are they trying to get done? How can you potentially help? What are some questions you should ask? And then one of our differentiators is that I have a bench of coaches, almost all former executives, who would say, okay, Janice, we're not here to teach you the tool, Client IQ. We're going to work with you. So how do you talk to a CMO? How do you talk to a CFO? So it really pulls all the pieces together. So a lot of customer intelligence, as well as what do you do with all this stuff?
I didn't realize you had the coaching element to that, because many companies do need hand-holding.
Oh, yeah.
Because they will revert back to type, won't they? How many reports are done that end up in the bottom drawer?
Oh, yeah. Are they? You just
need to change that behavior.
Your CRM. Hey, I ran a Finlistics report, check the box. Well, really, I mean, you're going to go talk to a senior person in marketing or operations. How do they think about the world? And that's where the coaching, both the webinars we do, and I'm just going to brag on my coaches. They average a net promoter score over 80. And the only company I know that's higher than that is Tesla. So I always tell people, Elon Musk, I'm coming for you.
Yes.
So no, that's a very, very valuable part of the process. So what we've been working on is how do you make it just easier. So, you know, you look at Lloyd's or you look at Carrefour, whoever it might be, and it pretty much gives you the answer. Right now, I still got to do some thinking, which sellers are, you know, paid to think, but just make it even more prescriptive. So that's what we're working on.
Excellent. Sounds fantastic. Okay, so who is your hero or shero?
Shero. Yeah, well, you know, I mentioned Elon Musk, and I love people that change the world. And you can whatever you want to think about Elon Musk. I know right now he's getting all this grief about Twitter and this and that and all that. I don't care about that. What I care about is, here's a person that literally changed the automotive industry. Here's a person that literally changed space travel. Here's a guy that will create things like these hyperloops. Say, oh, Janice, here's the blueprints. Take it. You go figure it out. And the other one is Sam Walton. He, again, changed the world. He helped people get access to goods that would have either been more expensive or just simply not available at all. So, from a business perspective, those are my heroes. And in my personal life, my mom and dad, of course.
Yeah, of course. That's fantastic. Brilliant. Well, how can listeners get hold of you?
Okay, so a couple of things. You can go to our website, finlistics.com. In fact, what we have is for the podcast, you can go to www.finlistics.com/listeners, and I'll send this link to you, Janice.
Yeah.
And there, what they can do is, for example, you can get a copy of the book, Insight-Led Selling. We've got a lot of great resources there. What you can also do is follow me or Finlistics on LinkedIn. And we do like 2 webinars a month. Like I'm doing one next week on the power of one. But a lot of times we have executives on what do I want, from you as a seller and that type of thing. So, go out to our website, a lot of great resources. Follow us on LinkedIn. We're always doing something, because I still have this professor in me, Janice. Knowledge should be free. And of course, my VP of sales is always, would you quit saying that? We're trying to sell something, shut up. But a lot of really good stuff out there that, again, it's focused on helping sellers be more successful, be more relevant to these executive buyers.
Well, I love your energy, and Steve and I have got lots in common because we love traveling, and we're always talking about traveling. But I would urge all sales professionals to get the book Insight-Led Selling. This is going to change your life. And also join the webinar next week and connect with Dr. Stephen.
Oh yeah, you don't have to call me Dr. Janice. I don't give shots.
Well, thank you so much for being a guest on Scale Your Sales podcast, Stephen.
Great. Thank you, Janice. And again, thanks everyone for joining us on this podcast. Hope you've gotten a good return on investment of your time, but thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Scale Your Sales podcast. If you like this discussion, feel free to listen to other episodes or watch the captioned show on YouTube and subscribe to future episodes. I would really appreciate it if you would leave a positive review on iTunes. Thank you.